This video is brought to you by America First Insight. Help support the growing conservative movement by becoming a member today. And if you want to support this channel, you can also use the code REAL when becoming a member. Thank you and enjoy the video. Well, we just received some breaking news out of the state of Florida, as a little while ago, it got reported that the Republican Party of Florida is prepared to redraw the congressional maps, which this is not that big of a surprise to really anybody. Like, let's be honest here, they've been talking about this for a couple months now, that, yeah, Florida more than likely will redraw their congressional maps, just like Texas did last month, just like a few other states are doing across the board. But there were questions as to how far would Republicans go? Because this is a very Republican state. This is a state that just a couple years ago was a swing state. Now it's R plus 10, R plus 15, R plus 20. And every single day, it's getting more and more and more Republican across the entire state. And we were wondering, how far would they go? Because Texas, they drew out five Democrats, more like four, we'll get to that in a little bit. But it was a big gain for the GOP. The state of California, they're retaliating. They're trying to draw out like 4 or 5 Republicans in California. But now Florida, they're not pissing around. They have officially entered the race for redrawing their maps. Again, not a big surprise, but look at this. According to Benny Johnson and a few other people, it's being reported that right now, the current plan will redraw not just 1 seat, not just 2, but upwards of 4 seats in the state of Florida. Yeah, that's not a misquote. It sounds like Republicans are going to try to redraw the state of Florida so much that they're going to have a net gain of upwards of 4 congressional districts just in 2026. And like Benny Johnson says, Republicans are probably going to gain 4 or 5 more seats in 2030 after the census, if not earlier, because Trump is saying they want to redo the census. It may not happen, but eventually it will happen. And Republicans are expected to gain potentially up to 5 seats in 2030. But right now they're saying, okay, we're going to redraw the map, and we're going to push for 4 more Republican seats for 2026 and beyond. That is a big deal. I mean, guys, everyone was thinking maybe like 2, maybe 3, but now it's sounding like they want to do 4, maybe 5. I think 5 is pushing it, but it sounds like right now the consensus within the party is we're going to gain 4 seats in the state of Florida. That is a huge deal, because just like Texas, these 2 states alone could be swinging the House towards the GOP. We're not talking about 1 or 2 seats. We're talking about up to 9 House seats just in 2 states, that flip Republican. Now, with Texas, we for sure have gained 4. 4 of those seats are more than likely going Republican. You do got Henry Cuellar's seat. I have concerns there because it is still a seat that he can win. He's very popular down in southern Texas. He probably does win unless he goes to prison. But even then, Texas, you get a net gain of 4. Florida, you get a net gain of 4 as well. And now states like Missouri, their new proposal is out, and they did it. They're going for a net gain of 1. You cannot gain 2 in Missouri. I'm sorry, I know some people are saying, oh, we got to gain 2 in the state. Get rid of old Democrats. No. That would be a ticking time bomb, especially around St. Louis. Let's just gain 1. States like Ohio, they're going to gain a couple in. So right now, you start doing the math and you realize these are a bunch of seats that Republicans are picking up. We're not talking about 1 or 2. We're talking about like 10, 11, 12, could be even more. Again, there's a few states we got to see what happens, but right now, if you're the Republican Party, you have to be feeling confident for 2026. Now, obviously, this does not mean it's a guarantee the Republicans keep the House, but you start doing the math, and I kind of did this as well, because people kept saying, well, Democrats are the heavy favorites to take back the House, and listen, history would tell you, yeah, right now, more than likely, Democrats have the advantage in the House. But I've been saying throughout this entire year that I think it's 50-50. I think it's 50-50 for the House right now. And the big reason is redistricting. Redistricting is a big X factor for 2026. because we're not talking about 1 or 2 seats. Like I said, we're talking about potentially up to 12 seats going from Democrat to Republican. Now, states like California, they're trying to redraw their map. Everybody knows they have a big referendum there, which that may not even pass. I still think it does. But the problem is, that's it. Based on everything we're hearing right now, California is the only major Democrat state that Democrats can really gain any seats in terms of redistricting. States like Oregon and Washington, they really can't. They're trying to make a push for it. It's unlikely. New York, they've admitted that, yeah, we're screwed. We can't really do much. Sorry, we're out of... we can't do anything. Legally speaking, we can't. Illinois, they tapped out in seats a long time ago. They have already gerrymandered Illinois so much that I don't think you can really do much more in that state. But still, you look across the map, it's clear that Democrats are kind of tapped out with redistricting. They really are. And you start doing the math and you realize something. The House is looking horrific for Dems and looking damn good for the GOP. Again, this is not a guarantee, and people should not be thinking, oh, it's a guarantee the Republicans win the House. But I did the math and I looked at the current state of the House, and look at this. All right, this is not a perfect map. This is not an official prediction, but this is kind of where things are heading right now. All right, you have, based on what we're seeing in Texas, Missouri, Ohio, Florida, Indiana more than likely will redraw their maps as well. We got to see for sure, but it sounds like, despite what some of them are saying, Trump is going to force them to redraw. It's like either you redraw the map in Indiana or you don't have a job anymore. Now, there are a couple other states that we don't know for sure in, like New Hampshire, like Kansas, like Nebraska, though right now, I think it's very unlikely those states redraw. You know, New Hampshire, they might, we'll see. But it doesn't sound like they're that interested, which I think is stupid, but that's the Republicans in New Hampshire, right? Like, seriously, just, it's a free seat. Redraw it to make it Republican. You have a trifecta. What are you doing? Kansas, there's a lot of legal issues with that. Democrats control the Supreme Court there, so unlikely. Nebraska, they've been trying to do this for years. They might get through now, but we'll see. Utah, funny enough, is more than likely going to be the most likely to be redrawn. I mean, that's Utah for you. It's a very Republican state, supposedly, and you gotta deal with courts like that, okay? That's Utah. But even then, you do the math, and Republicans right now are 216. And yes, that's when you factor in California. And this is a problem Democrats are not willing to admit to. Even with redistricting in California going through, which is not a guarantee, which is hilarious. If that fails, they have no path to the House. There's no pathway. But even if it does pass, which I think right now it does, they for sure get a net gain of 3 in California. That's it. Now, some people are saying, oh, it's a net gain of 5. But the problem is, 2 of those seats, David Valadao was a strong candidate in, I think, California in 22, and it still voted for Trump. So it's not an automatic flip, and California 48th, the Republican down there is an overperformer, and it's only like D+3 or whatever. So listen, it's not a guarantee that those for sure stay Republican, but I would argue right now they are pure toss-ups. We don't know for sure. We got to see what happens. And you look at that. That's it for redistricting for Dems. They can't do much in New York. Legally speaking, they can't. They've maxed out in Massachusetts, Connecticut, these other states. They just can't gain anything else. And that's the problem. These 12 flips to the GOP, it gets Republicans at 216. I should be clear, this is not an official prediction. This is kind of, I guess, estimates as to how things are looking right now. Not a prediction, but just looking at the consensus for a lot of these seats and, you know, how things are shaping up. Republicans, when you factor in redistricting and some of these other seats, they're really at 216. And Democrats are 190. So for Republicans to keep the House, they have to win 2 more seats. 2! Democrats, meanwhile, they have to run the table everywhere. If all these districts are really toss-ups, which, again, a lot can happen. It's not an official prediction. We are still a year out from 2026, so anything could happen. But for Democrats to win the House by even a tiny majority, they can't lose a single competitive seat whatsoever. They cannot lose anything. And on top of that, based on the current math, which again, a lot could happen, but this is based off the current estimates right now. A lot could happen. We'll see. And states like Ohio and Indiana, they may redraw even further. That's why some of the seats in Ohio and Indiana, they're purple. They're to be determined. They may even go further in those states. We don't know for sure. So it could get even worse. And on top of that, of all these slightly competitive seats, one of them is Brian Fitzpatrick in Pennsylvania. He's not going to lose. So you could argue that's a Republican victory there. And Michael Lawler in New York is a very strong candidate. More than likely he wins as well. So that's 218. And that's another problem. These Harris Republican seats, these are seats that Harris won in 24 and Republicans won down ballot. There's only 3 of them. It's Fitzpatrick, Michael Lawler, and Don Bacon. Don Bacon probably flips because he's retiring. But there are 2, like I mentioned, Michael Lawler and Brian Fitzpatrick, they're strong candidates. They outrun Republicans all the time. And Trump barely lost these seats. It's not like he lost them by 15 points or whatever. He lost them by like a quarter of a percentage. It was nothing. Meanwhile, based on the current map, and again, this does not include pure toss-ups. The pure toss-ups are ones that no one really knows in, but a couple of these seats are toss-ups like in Michigan or Pennsylvania or whatever, even Nevada. But still, you get the point. Well, there are 7 districts on this map that Democrats won down ballot in 2024, but Trump won them. So there are right now 7 seats that are Trump districts, but represented by a Democrat. You see the problem here? For Democrats to win the House by just a couple seats based on the current map, based on the current math, a lot could happen. They have to win everything. They have to run the table, and they have to hold on to every seat. Every one of these yellow districts, they have to hold on to them for dear life. If they lose like one of them, they're screwed. And they have to flip a couple seats like Brian Fitzpatrick. That's never going to happen. They have to flip Michael Lawler's seat just to barely, maybe, get a tiny House majority. Republicans, meanwhile, if they win Henry Cuellar's seat and one other district, a lot of them are represented by Republicans, like in Wisconsin, like in Virginia, like in even Pennsylvania. You win like 2 or 3 of these seats, it's over. And of these 14 truly competitive seats right now, again, some of these other seats are competitive, like in Nevada, like in Michigan, even like Michael Lawler's seat is to be fairly competitive, okay? But they're not included for this because, you know, the point is, these are seats that Trump lost and Republicans won down ballot. That's a point. But of these 14 districts that are really competitive, these are districts that, in my opinion, right now are true toss-ups. Look at this. 11 of them voted for Trump. Only 3 of them voted for Harris. Yeah. This is what Democrats have to deal with right now. For Democrats to win the House in 2026 by a tiny majority, they have to not only win every single race that Trump won in 2024 in, right? Like Washington 3rd, which they made primary at Perez, which is insane. Not only that, they have to flip Michael Lawler's seat. They have to flip Brian Fitzpatrick's seat. And they're very popular. They're very strong candidates. And they have to win everything on this map just to get a small majority. Now do people understand why I don't think Democrats are in a good position in the House? At least in 2026? In fact, you could argue that Republicans could actually expand their majority. Not a guarantee, because it is a midterm, it's lower turnout. A lot of the Trump base, they may not even vote, we'll see. But do you see the problem? Again, there are other toss-ups, I get that, but this map kind of demonstrates how bad of a situation Democrats are really in. Because even if you factor out these Trump Democrat seats, Harris Republican seats, Republicans are still at 216. Now, a couple of these districts are leaning Republican, they could flip, I guess, but even if that's the case, that's only like 5 seats. Republicans are still at like 211 or 212. Democrats, they're at 187 or 190. And factor in the Harris Republican seats, Trump Democrat seats, give them like 200. They would still have to run the table. They can't lose a damn district anywhere. And they have to flip so many seats just to get like 212 in the House or 220 in the House. Does that sound realistic? Again, it's not an official prediction right now, but man, every single day it's becoming more and more difficult to really reason with the idea that Democrats are going to have this huge majority. They might take back the House, sure, but it's not going to be this 2018 style blue wave where they're going to flip 30 House seats or like 50 or whatever it was. It was crazy. Right now, there's nothing indicating that in the metrics, voter registration, and even the current map does not indicate this blue tsunami. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.